What are some common foods that make you wonder, who was the first weirdo to try eating that? Not so much a weirdo but a wizard. How did they figure out bread? Think of all the time and techniques that go into make a good, light loaf of bread. How many tries did they go through before someone went, no, this is it. This is good. I think bread is truly what makes us humans. What separates us from animals? Because any animal can eat fermented fruit and get drunk. They can eat things like insects or horrible smelling plants and call it a day. But what animal besides humans can come up with anything close to bread? To create bread is to be human. Something I think a lot of people are missing here is that a great deal of these firsts were us noticing other animals eating those things. We definitely have a different physiology, and not everything they eat can be eaten by us, but it's still a pretty good chance for early humans that if they saw a wolf or whatever eating something, they can probably eat that too. One thing that set humans apart was our development of language and stories, allowing us to pass on knowledge observed in our lifetime to each other and to future generations. I have yet to see almonds mentioned, and you have to understand that the original almonds were bitter and contained cyanide, so eating relatively few would make you sick, yet someone saw the potential enough to selectively breed them to be sweeter and less poisonous. Maybe that happened somewhat on its own, but the idea that someone tried a bitter, poisonous nut and pushed forward always blows my mind. I'm guessing the people who figured out beans are poisonous before cooking must have always just cooked them first, until one poor sod came along and decided to skip the cooking step and suffered. Because how would anyone eat something raw and discover it's poisonous, but then decide to risk it a second time after experimental cooking to see what happens? Cheese, like OMG, it's already weird enough that you want to ingest the breast milk from an animal, but imagine going, ooh, I love the animal booby juice out for too long and now there's weird stinky curdly lumps in it. I wonder if I eat that? Edit, mind you, I love cheese. Smoked Gruyere and Bordata live rent-free in my mind 24/7. Worcestershire sauce, they left a bunch of anchovies and other stuff in a barrel and tested it a few months to see if it was any good and discovered it tasted foul. They forgot about the barrel and rediscovered it a few years later and decided to give it a try. That's when they found out it was delicious. Foods that are toxic before properly cooked or otherwise processed, like red kidney beans, raw, will kill you, and it only takes a few. Imagine how hungry you would have to be to say, well, Joe ate a handful of those yesterday and now he's dead, let's try cooking them, I guess? Not food, but who figured out that something extremely caustic with very high pH like lye mixed with animal fat would make soap. Only thing I can figure out is that meat cooked over a fire dripped fat into wood ash and inadvertently discovered saponification soap. It's always been mushrooms, for me. The process of elimination needed to find safely edible ones. Like this one killed someone. This one peeled back the layers of reality for 8 hours, this one is okay, this one made me shit my insides out for 3 days, etc. Sushi, or more specifically sashimi. As someone who likes sushi, I sometimes wonder what the trial and error process for deciding to eat raw fish was like. And how many people got worms or died, like with pufferfish for example in that process. Crustaceans. Who looked at a lobster or a crab and thought we could be eating these giant sea bugs with dangerous pincers and difficult to open shells if we just boiled them alive and developed special little tools to open them up. There's a Chinese idiom that translates to the first person to eat crab, meaning a very brave person. So I like to think about the person who saw a skittering water spider looking thing and went, that looks great, I'm gonna eat it. Not a common food, but a native one, the kernel of the karka berry. It has to be cooked in a hangi for 24 hours or boiled continuously boiled for 6-8 hours before they are edible. If not properly prepared, they are highly poisonous. Most plants and animals are edible. The iffy ones are probably the result of a person being on the verge of starvation. If the choice is definitely die of starvation, or maybe die of a new food, most people would take the chance. Anything that's pickled. Because first they'd have to discover vinegar, which is weird enough, but then to put something in that liquid that is won through rotten fruit to stop the added thing from rotting. Chocolate. The number of steps required to go from cocoa pod to chocolate bar is insane. I have no idea how those steps could have been worked out without knowing the final result was possible a priori. Always figure the first person to eat a lobster, crab, oyster, clam must have been effing starving. I love them all, but they do not inherently look like they should taste good or are even edible. Not a food but cow milk. Have you all beat with this one lamau? Edit, someone already did this one, so how about sushi instead? Someone was starving when they decided to eat raw fish. Shout out to all the people in prehistory who ate random shit. We gotta show people more love who do crap like planking and eating bugs on a dare. It's totally the same genes. Artichokes. Prickly, stabby, leathery leaves, hairy interior. Who the hell had the patience to steam the ever-loving F out of them to figure out how to actually eat and enjoy them? When I think of disgusting foods, I think of onions. You can't taste the flavor though. Okay, even if that is true, the smell they produce is beyond disgusting. Oysters. I don't like them, and I can imagine anyone looking at that nasty giant loogie and thinking I'm gonna eat that and tell everyone it's delicious. The first person to eat a strawberry or a raspberry, like most red berries, could kill you. Was it luck or a better stupidity that led to their discovery? Cottage cheese. Who was the first person to look at a bucket of curdled milk and holler, "Ma, get a spoon, I can even with cottage cheese"? Ick. Artichoke. Someone actually took a bite of a bitter, raw artichoke and said, "Man, this tastes like shit. Let's cook it and taste it again." New oak man, let's take the smelly sauce from rotting fish and use it on our meal. Probably started as a prank or an assassination attempt. The coffee that has to be harvested from monkey poop. How does one even make that leap? Luwak. Isn't there some fish that is highly toxic unless you bury it and let it ferment? Edit. Crabs are in my eyes the spiders of the sea, and somebody just decided to crack them open and start eating out the insides. Who decided that if they mix a ton of random things plus flour, sugar, and eggs and baked it, they would get something delicious? Escargot. As Anthony Bourdain pontificated, the first guy who discovered that these were edible must have been fucking starving. Snails. I maintain that nobody likes snail. They like butter and salt, but who thought it needed to be mixed with a slimy bug? Chocolate. There is no way that someone could guess that the goop inside a cocoa bean pod could be made into anything edible. Aquafaba is the one that gets me. How are they thinking it could be used like egg white instead of biffing it down the sink? Who's the first guy who looked at a cow and said, "I think I'll drink whatever comes out of these things when I squeeze them"? I always wonder about processed foods, like bread. Who was the first person to complete all those steps to get bread? Toast. Who would think to make a loaf of bread and then cook a slice of it again? I want bread, but cook it twice. Olives stand out for me. You can't eat them raw. Who thought I'd take this thing and soak it in stuff and then eat it? Milk. Like what human missed nursing so much that they decided to get it from another animal? Lol. Also pufferfish. Whelks. Snails of the sea. Gross. Eels. Snaky seafood. Ick. Pig's feet. Like these walked a mud their whole life. Coffee. Who was like, "Okay, this is gross as is, but if I roast it and put it in hot water it's actually kinda good." Mayo. Like it's pain in the ass to make it. Why would have anyone think it's a good idea? Still love it though. Artichokes. Who looked at these tough, nasty thistles and thought, "I'll figure out a way to sort of eat that." Rocky Mountain oysters. Who was the first person to look at a bull's balls and want them in their mouth? Butter. Hey, I'm gonna take this milk, and churn the ever-loving shit out of it until something happens. Gooey duck. Looks like penis on the half shell. Real damn difficult to harvest, yank out of wet sand. There is an awful lot of privilege in this thread. Milk? Eggs? Crustaceans? Those are weird. Reuben sandwiches. It's just a bunch of bizarre stuff thrown on bread and is fucking delicious. Eggs. Someone saw something fall out of a chicken's butt and said we should try eating that. The bird's nests and bird nests. Oop. Firstly insourcing them, then trying them in a soup. Eggs. Who saw a chicken poop something out and thought too, I wonder if that's edible. Not common in the US, but is in some places. Haggis and rakefisk. Also, kimchi. Eggs, bro. Who watched a chicken shit that out and decided we need to eat that? Chocolate, but more of how did they figure out the process of making it? Onions. Did the first person pick it up and bite into it, like an apple? Mayonnaise. Nothing about it indicates to me that it should be eaten. I will say mushrooms, as strictly speaking they aren't even plants. Honey. It's delicious, but who thought, "Let me try this bee vomit." Clams, lobster, oysters, squid. Must have been really hungry. Pussy. Doesn't fulfill hunger and the first one had to be nasty. An egg. Hey, let's eat that thing that chicken just pooped. Capers. Who thought to eat a flower bud? And then, pickle it? Hands down it's olives, just try eating one off the tree. Eggs. Hey, that fell out of a bird's ass, let's try it. Toast. Who looked at bread and thought cook it again?